He thought he was flipping houses. Turns out he was rebuilding futures. In today's conversation about power, I'm talking to LeVar Love about how he took his love of flipping houses and turned it into something much bigger than he ever could have imagined. Talking to LeVar Love in this episode of Conversations About Power is a joy. He has taken what he loves doing most, property development, and he's found a way to support his community in the south and west side of Chicago. And he's done it in a way that is beautiful. The stories he can tell about what changing and updating houses does for the people involved in the building, the neighborhood, and the company that he has set up is really heartwarming. So if you want to find out about how you can use your own power, your own passion, the things that you care about to make a real difference in the world, this is going to be an inspirational episode for you. Right. So another conversation about power, and a great one again today. We are talking to LeVar Love from Chicago today, who just been telling me it's nice weather, which is something I can relate to. So we're recording this in March, and a bit of sunshine is doing us the world of good. LeVar, welcome. So pleased you could be here today.
Man, it is awesome to be here to talk to you today, Lynn.
Yeah, well, we are going to find out we're going to hear some great stories today. I'm sure of it. So can you tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is LeVar Love. I am the principal owner of Rosie Investment Corporation. It is a real estate development corporation in the city of Chicago. The beautiful thing about it is that I have an opportunity to have my purpose, have a passion. My passion meets purpose is what I really like to say. In the past, I have been a licensed realtor, I've been a flipper, things of that nature. And over the last 4 or 5 years, I've had an opportunity to partner with the city of Chicago, specifically the Department of Housing, and strategically go after renovating and rehabilitating homes on the south and west side of Chicago, creating affordable housing, using workforce development labor to do it. And it's just really been an amazing experience to basically make a great living doing something beneficial for the community that you grew up in.
Beautiful, beautiful. So there are people listening to this and watching this podcast from all over the world. Not
Mhm.
everybody knows much about the south side of Chicago or the west side. Can you give us a bit of background? I mean, I've read Michelle Obama's, autobiography, so I know a bit about South Side. But for people who haven't, would you tell us a bit about what's it like to live there?
Sure. So living on the west or the south side of Chicago is sometimes, or what I would say growing up there, because I grew up there, it's like really like what you see on the movie sometimes. It's the roughest times, the roughest days. There's a saying like if you can make it out of the west side of Chicago, you can make it anywhere because it's the epitome of an underserved community, a community with a lack of resources, a community with not the best education system, a community where unemployment is the highest, a community where there's gang activity as well as just all of the things that I hate to say that like you see in the movies. It's happening on the streets of Chicago on the south and west side. It really is. A lot of the things that you see aren't fabricated. Now, what I will tell you is there's also some amazing things that happen on the south and west side, right? There are some powerful stories. There is a lot of individuals that are working and doing amazing work on the south and west side at the same time. They both happen.
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah, and that's why I wanted, to get a sort of rounded idea of what it's like. I mean, you grew up there, you're doing amazing
Yeah.
things, so that shows that it's not all bad and gangs and awful stuff. So how did you how did you get through that time growing up, in a situation that's a challenge to any kid growing up around there? How did you do that?
A strong household.
Right.
And it really was a village. So my mother actually she was a single mother, and she worked third shift at Cook County Hospital. So I really feel like I was pretty much raised by my grandparents and aunts and uncles. So when she was working third shift and just doing everything that she could to put food on the table, what I had was a strong family surrounding, strong support from a grandmother, a grandfather, an uncle, a cousin, an older cousin that made sure if I was acting silly or doing something I should do, they were standing right there to get me back in line and say, "Nope, that's not the path you're going. You're going this way." So that is the kind of that's the foundation and how I made it through high school as well as on to college, which is where things really became transformative for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how you talk about your family. There's a lot there. The way you
Yeah.
describe them, there's a real depth of feeling in the way that you talk about them. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, when I do my best to really recognize the the value that my family created for me. Because here's the thing, at the same time I was growing up in the west side of Chicago, I had friends that were growing up that didn't have the families that I had, that went home and really did like I never had to say, okay, is there going to be dinner? I always knew that there was going to be dinner. It might not be what I wanted for dinner, but we had dinner, right?
Yeah.
I had friends, they didn't know if there was going to be dinner.
Yeah.
They had to figure that out at 12 or 13 years old. So I was grateful, understanding that I was blessed to have that. So I think it's that gratitude and understanding the value that my family created during that time that said, nope, I got to make it out of here. I got to get out of here. I have to do something and give back. So and
Yeah.
that's a point that I really want to get back to, later when we kind of
Yeah,
talk. It's
absolutely.
like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Because, some people, they grow up somewhere and they've got that raging desire to get out and to do things
Mhm.
differently and to make something of their lives. And some people just want to get out and stay out,
Yeah.
but you've done it differently. Then that says a lot about, I think, about how you grew up, that you did get that framework of this is how we do it and this is not how we do it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's so important for kids, isn't it, to get that, to get that feedback. If they're doing something wrong, they need somebody to be telling them about it, right? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'll tell you is kind of going into a little bit of my college journey is what really kind of created the thought process around giving back was a poem. So one of my mentors in college gave me a poem called Bridge Builder. And the poem Bridge Builder talks about a man who needs to cross like a river or a lake or something like that, and he builds this bridge. He realizes that he probably could cross it without the bridge. He could swim across. But he realized that if he builds the bridge, there will be those that come behind him that will have an easier path to cross this river, across this lake. And it was like those formative thoughts for me that said, hey, what type of person do I want to be? It's like because I live my life wanting someone to build a bridge for me that I could cross. Well, I also want to build bridges so the people that are coming behind me can cross that river easy or cross that lake easier than I did. So that's where that thought process really started to form.
Yeah, that's beautiful that you would get that at a young enough age that it can really change the direction of your life like that. But
Yeah.
education is just so important, isn't it?
Yes.
It's so, so important, especially those moments. I've been in education myself, and sometimes you say something to a kid and you can see it happening. They're not saying
Yeah.
anything back, but you can think, okay, that one landed. That one landed. I don't know where it's going to go, but it landed. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. So you went from college and now you're working with the city
Yeah.
creating these projects in South Side and West
Mhm.
Side. So what kind of projects are we talking about?
Sure. So our primary focus is residential housing. Like I said, we partner with the Department of Housing for the city of Chicago. It's targeted projects to create affordable housing on the south and west side. So the idea is that, so there are two components to it. It's like one, to create a great foundation for the city because we have these abandoned properties, these rundown properties that need to be stabilized, preserved, taken care of, which will improve the community in and of itself just by, making sure the property isn't run down. But at the same time, what they're saying is, hey, can we not only improve the aesthetics of the community, but create generational wealth because we take this person who doesn't own a home and put them in an affordable housing unit where they purchase, and now they start to build equity and it creates generational wealth over time. And then to me, what I call a beautiful piece of to say, hey, but what we also want to do is take a workforce development element here and start to train and develop individuals to rehab these houses. So now we're creating individuals in the trades who have a career, right? So now it's a career path that allows them to not only rehab the house but also to be able to afford the house. And that's where the overall community development piece comes in. So that it's multifaceted, but the primary projects are just, I don't want to say simple because it's not simple, but just simple residential housing.
Yeah, and I think there's, I love all those different aspects. And I know when we were talking about this, when we were getting to know each other, you were also saying that the one of the great things is when you do a house up, it's not just that house where the equity rises, it's all the houses
Right.
around it. So, it's really lifting an area. Yeah. And that's something that's just occurred to me as my dad used to be in, well, we in the UK would say building in, in the US
Uh-huh.
construction. And he would, and his father was as well, coming from an Irish background, what a lot of Irish people did where I grew up. And we would drive around the city and my dad would say, I built that. Your
Yes.
granddad built that. And it's a sort of local pride that you get as well.
I
Yeah.
do it with my son. So I have a 17-year-old son, and I don't know if he's going to go into the family business or not. But what I love to do is drive him down the blocks where we've completed projects, and say, hey, look at that house right there. Like, we rehab the house. Or the beautiful part about it, some of the houses he helped. So during the summertime, he would come over and kind of help if we're doing demo, or like he'd be like, yeah, man, Dad, you remember we did this house in this area? And it's some of his fondest moments as well. Man, I sometimes I don't even think about the impact that it has on even my family overall, because some of our best moments are 100-degree weather in the summertime in a torn down house where we're laughing and having a great time. And those are core family moments for us.
That's beautiful. I can really imagine that. I mean, he's there with you, seeing
Yeah.
what you do, learning from you. I mean, it doesn't, and he's learning as well, with probably without realizing he's learning something. But I
Yeah.
mean, they're some of the best moments out there, aren't they?
Yeah. He talks about, to this day, he talks about two of his best moments we've had have been in those houses, because it's one of those things, because in the summertime in Chicago, some days it's 100 degrees, right? These houses, like, they're in the middle of rehab. They don't have AC, they don't have any of
Yeah.
that. So it was experiences that he had never had before. So now it's like, he looks back on those, like, because he was probably 10, 11, 12. He looks back on them now at 17, almost 18 years old. And to him, those are the good old days. He was like, oh, Dad, do you remember when we used to? And I'm sitting there like, yeah, I remember how much you didn't like it then. But yeah, but yes, I
Yeah.
remember those days, man.
Yeah.
That's what
I,
I'll tell you.
I had similar things with my kids because I was trying to get them involved in my business, just, getting them to do even small things. And it was like getting blood from a stone most of the time. But
Yeah.
when they look back on it, they both now think that, it would be good to have a business. It's given them an insight into doing something for
Yep.
yourself, not just sitting back and waiting for somebody to give you a job, but you can go out there and do something. It sort of
Yeah.
really changes their perspective on life.
So I would love to dive into that because so today because of so I would talk to him not only with one I was like you got to start at the bottom, so he would start really just picking stuff off the ground and going and taking it and putting it in the dumpster, just drywall, plaster, things like that, right? And then over the years, I was like, nah, after the second year, third year, I was like, hey, man, I don't want to, you're going to work in the house, but I also want to talk to you about the numbers for the house, like how much it cost and all of those things, which today he actually does his own. He's in an investment banking club at his school. So he really sees things from a different perspective. So I realized like he's going to start college next year, but he's starting college already thinking about, well, Dad, do you think by the time I'm a senior, I could probably buy a condo or buy my own home? He has an expectation of being a homeowner. He already understands, like, I'm going to buy probably a rundown house and fix it up because I know how to do it. I know that, or the people, I know how to get the people to do it. And I know how to go into it where I have equity. He already knows these things. So when we think about and talk about kind of creating that power within or that perspective of home ownership, and he's already thinking about how he's going to create wealth and investments and things like that at 17.
You must be so proud.
I
That would,
won't tell him though. I won't tell
of
him.
course not. No, 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 no. No, he can find that out later. In 20
Yeah.
years' time, you can tell him, yeah, but yeah, I can imagine that must be incredible to
Yeah.
see your kid doing that. I know what it's like when I see my kids talking about that. It's just yeah, it feels great. Yeah, yeah.
It is heartfelt. It's amazing, actually.
Mm. Yeah. So you're developing these houses, and do you have like maybe a story about somebody who's come up through one of these rehab projects,
Mhm.
who you've taken on and what you've seen happen with them?
Sure. So I actually have a really good. So I think about this one project. So there was one project on the south side of Chicago that we did that really was eye-opening, and it was the moment where I realized we were community developers. There was a project in the Inglewood community when we checked every box from kind of what the program is supposed to be. So we purchased it from a land bank. It was a property that had been vacant for over 10 years. We brought in what's called a pre-apprentice cohort, which is individuals who are just learning how to work on houses and do things of that nature. So it was one of those first projects with the pre-apprenticeship program, the workforce development, labor, but also at this project, there was a strong block club there. And what that means is that the individuals who already lived there, the homeowners there, they cared about the block. They were so appreciative that we were coming in and taking this abandoned rundown property on their block and changing it and doing something with it, that it was almost like we became part of the block. Right. We were there for 6 to 9 months. And after about 3 months, one of the homeowners would bring cookies over to the crew and they would invite us to the 4th of July barbecue. And we really became almost like a member of the community while we were working on that project. So by the time we were wrapping up and we're bringing them in, letting them see the work that we've done, and they're just like ecstatic and proud, it became a moment of sadness because they were like, wait a minute, you guys aren't going to be here anymore. So they got together and created a list of properties in like a 2 or 3 block radius that they wanted us to start working on. And they were like, we're willing to sign a petition with the city. We want you guys to focus on our area and just really the difference that you're making. So that was powerful for me. And it was game changing, and I started to see things through a different lens because I think at that time I really saw myself, yeah, I was a developer, but this is about really flipping properties. And it changed like immediately. I was like, no, we are community developers. We have a much larger impact and we have a much larger responsibility. Now, what I want to talk about is that property we didn't just impact the individuals on that block. It was sold to a family that had a young child. They were first time home buyers. So we just checked every one of those boxes. And then an individual who was on that pre-apprenticeship cohort program, He actually works for our construction company today. Yeah.
That's
So he went through.
beautiful.
Yeah, so now there aren't a lot of stories like that, right? What we found is the number of pre-apprentices that kind of go all the way through and get to a place where they stay in the trades. It's probably about a 2 out of 10, but we were fortunate enough to get one of those two. And he works for the company. He's in the trades. He's actually in a full apprenticeship with us right now and going through a home buyer or education course to buy him a house. And even though it's just that one, it's like to understand that we could have that much of an impact on that many different families, to me, is what this is about.
So, was there a moment when I mean, you said you realized that we weren't just flipping houses, we were community developers, but was there a moment when you suddenly realized, hang on a minute, this is bigger than I realized? Or can you remember what moment that was?
Sure. So it was that project, but here's what happened. While we were working on that project, there's actually a conference in Chicago. I think it was like a community rehabilitation conference and things like that. And our project was one of the projects that they decided to come by for the bus tour. And so this same project, my crew, some members from the city, we're standing out there, a bus pulls up, and about 20 or 30 people from other parts of the country get off this bus, and we stand in front of this project and talking about, the viability. Can we scale? How did we get this far? And we weren't, and it was in that moment where I realized we're not just impacting this community. If someone that got off this bus kind of grabs this concept and takes it with them, like, this has serious impact. And actually, that was the moment where one of the city representatives stopped me and they said, LeVar, you probably don't realize this in this moment, but this is something that you probably should be talking about all over the country. That's really what he literally told me that in that moment. I didn't process it then. I was like, yeah, all right, Mr. Edwards, yeah, thank you. Right. I was like, we got to get this house finished, man. You got to get back to work. But now, because that was late 2022. But now, after the workforce development program going, we picked up more projects, and now it's really kind of what I say when I talk. I actually talk to new developers today that are coming into the program. I speak to them and I tell them that what you have to understand is this is truly a successful business model. And this is a business model that we can use to transform our communities. So, but it was that moment when that bus pulled up at that project that I realized, oh, this is different.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. So it was somebody else seeing something in you and what you were doing that you hadn't seen until that. And well,
Until they
yeah,
spoke it. Yeah.
yeah,
I didn't even think about it like that.
yeah. So you just said something really interesting. So I want to go back to that. That this kind of community development is a really good business model. So
Hmm.
you might think community development, that's something that maybe the city should be in charge of, or it, it should be more of a sort of community thing. But you're
Hmm.
saying as a business, this makes a lot of sense. So can you
Yeah.
explain what it is that makes it such a good business model?
Sure. So what I would love to do is kind of contrast the perspectives. So when I looked at the business as a flipper or just kind of a real estate investor, it was project based. It was, oh, I need to get this project done. I need to make this amount of money out of this project. It was one project. It kind of really didn't matter what community it was in and things of that nature. So you're really just looking at the numbers for one project, right? So when after a lot of training, a lot of understanding and things of that nature, and a couple of years of pulling things together, when we created a back office that understood how to basically to complete all of the administrative things that are required for lien waivers and communication and things of that nature. It was like it started to move a lot faster. And then we realized, well, there's this huge demand here, right? Well, if we have a workforce that can support that demand, well, just like in regular real estate, the properties have value. There is, cash flow coming in and financing and resources. What all we had to do is understand how the model had to work to be successful. So now we have this business model, not just one project. It's a business. It's looking at it more like an overall, the community is like a portfolio. And you know how if you have a portfolio, you got to take care of that portfolio. You have to manage the portfolio. You don't look at just one stock, right? One stock might be up or one stock might be down, but you realize that the overall portfolio is successful.
Yeah.
And so that is the model that we look at the community as like, how are we impacting the community overall, and how are all of our projects looking, as a portfolio. And that is a successful business model.
Beautiful. I love that. I mean, so often, business is positioned as something sort of outside of community. That you've got
Yeah.
community, and the community is the people and all the social things, and then you've got business, and that's all about making money. But you're saying put the two together, and your business model is even stronger. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, which is exactly why I wanted to talk to you today. So, is there anything else you'd like to share with us about how your this model works, or is there anything you'd like to share? Because otherwise, I've got some questions for you.
Sure. Well, the only thing that I'd like to make sure that I continue to communicate about is just the workforce development component. I think that if we didn't have that aspect of it, it would make it really difficult, because I think that over time, what will really create, the ability to sustain the business model long term is that we're saying, hey, we're creating a workforce inside of these same projects that are creating value today. It's this workforce that will create value down the road. So when these individuals who are learning to be carpenters and electricians and HVAC individuals get into their career and are making money where they can come back and buy houses in these same neighborhoods 5 years from now, 7 years from now, that is the extended long-term value that we create. So we cannot lose sight of that workforce development component today that will create value in the future.
Yeah, so it's really is a combination of that, that idea of, you know, give a man a fish and teach a man to fish, isn't it? It's
That's right.
both, yeah. So, so LeVar, if I say the word power to you, what associations do you have with it?
So power to me is about knowledge. So I think it kind of goes back to that educational piece that we were talking about earlier. So many things that I had to learn, which once I learned those things, I felt self-empowered. I could take action. I could make decisions, well-informed decisions because of the knowledge. And
Hmm,
that's what gave me the power.
cool. You're the first person to say knowledge. In all of
Okay.
these conversations, everybody always says something different. So, LeVar, when do you feel most powerful?
Sure. When I feel like I've learned and have understanding that others don't. I talk a lot with my wife and I tell her that I have a superpower. So my superpower is that in this was even when I was in corporate America first started college. What my managers, my bosses would tell me is that I could make progress in the most ambiguous situations. So if for those not familiar with ambiguous, but in the most kind of grayest moments, vague moments, right? Most people stall. They don't know what to do because someone hasn't told them what to do next, or they don't have a process, or whatever the case may be. Well, when I am well informed and I have knowledge, I feel like I'm a superhero. And that's really what this the program that I'm doing. I took several components from different places, and not to brag or anything, but I saw some things that other people didn't see, like the way to bring in this workforce development component, to bring in the neighborhood rebuild program, and put all of these things together and make them a successful business model. All of the individual pieces were there, but I had to see them together, and I was able to, in a very ambiguous situation, create something of value.
You're so right about that, those ambiguous situations and that people then just sort of stop. It's like they freeze, they don't know what to
Yeah.
do. Oh, but I could get it wrong. Yes, you could. I I
Yes.
I realized when I was working in corporate that I called it the vacuum. It was like nothing happened. And,
Hmm.
anytime there was a reorganization, the vacuum started. And then everybody would say, we can't decide that yet. We'll need to wait for this. We can't do this. We can't do that. And after a certain point, I thought, all I need to do is to step into the vacuum and do what I think needs to be done. And everybody else is sitting around waiting. And I can get so much more done by not waiting because everybody else is waiting. So there's actually more space to do things at those
Take
moments.
action, and yeah, you have more leeway. So I was a part of several reorganizations, or just like corporate reorgs, and I was so successful during those times as well. It was kind of like, oh, wait a minute. So that stuff you told me I couldn't do before, you don't know if I can do it now? Okay, I'm just going to do it and let's see what happens. And typically, if you do it and are successful, deliver results, they're like, oh, that's great. That's awesome. We can't
That's
believe
fine.
you
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's those moments where you're not entirely sure. They always say you can either say sorry or ask permission, right? And in
That's
those
right.
moments, and in those moments where you're not entirely sure who you should ask permission of, well, hey,
Okay, let's go.
yeah, exactly. So, so LeVar, what do you enjoy about power?
So I've lived my life as an underdog. So for me, it's about being able to help the underdog, or being able to support can I tell a story about this one?
Yeah, please.
So when I was in high school during the summertime, my uncle, he worked at a high school. When I was in high school, he worked at a high school. And he was the dean of something while I was there. So he would get me a summer job. And during that summer job, even though my uncle was a dean, I worked in maintenance. So I worked with the janitors. And what I realized is that there were janitors that had more power in that school than some of the most powerful administrative people in that school, because people respected that janitor. They listened to that janitor. They knew that that janitor was wise, and they knew everything that was going on in that building. Right. So it was like he had the key to everything. He knew where everything was. And I was working with them. Right. And my uncle basically would tell me, like, hey, when you're working with this individual, pay attention. Like, everybody listens to him. So, but what I also realized was he spoke to everybody, every janitor. He didn't care if you were the principal of the school, if you were one of the kids that was sitting in the hallway crying. He had respect for everyone, and he did his best to support everyone the best that he could. And because of that, everyone respected him. And that's where his power came from, because of the respect that everyone gave him because of the way he supported others. And to me, that is how you use power.
That
And you actually get more.
Yeah, you get so much more done if you treat people well, don't you? It's
Yeah.
always amazed me in, especially in corporate environments, how many people don't talk to anybody in at the reception, or if somebody's
Yeah. Yeah.
cleaning, they don't say hello to them. I just hello, they're human beings. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I found, like when I climbed the corporate ladder, so like by the time I left corporate, I was an area manager over, multiple facilities, had 11, 12 direct reports and things like that. And what I would always talk about was you realize that, if like say your whoever was your hiring manager, the person that was really making the major decision was the person that reported to them, right? Or who got them the information that they needed. And it was kind of like, hey, how did you treat that person? Even though that they might be the receptionist or they might be the administrative assistant, right? It's like, honestly, that's who needs to be your best friend. Because they're the one that's getting the person in power all of their information. How did you treat that person?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Or if it's the receptionist, that's the person who can maybe, help you out if you're having
So
if something's not working out someday or something. It's
you might get on the calendar when nobody else can get on the calendar
yeah,
because of the receptionist.
yeah, exactly. I remember having a conversation back then when a guy would come around every evening cleaning, and
Uh-huh.
I started to talk to him, and this guy was a doctor, but he was a refugee, and he hadn't got the qualifications to be able to work in this country yet, so he was a doctor. And then
Yeah.
so a lot of the other people in the office, they didn't speak to him. I think, oh, this if they'd only taken the trouble, they would have realized that there was a doctor in there
Right.
doing the cleaning. He wasn't complaining, he was working.
Right.
I always think there's honor in work, whatever it is that you're doing.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think anybody else knew that this guy was a doctor.
And to me, what I also heard in that is that same tenacity, the same work ethic that he had to become a doctor, that's his character
Yeah,
because he has that same work ethic being a janitor or part of the custodian. It's his pride in his work. That's who he is, and that's the character that he has regardless of the title. Like, a title is a title.
yeah, yeah. It's a situation, isn't it? That's all it is,
Yeah.
really. Yeah, yeah. So, LeVar, what do you do if you want to feel more powerful?
If I want I go and sit down and talk to my wife.
Okay.
No, so believe it or not, there's so much truth in that. It's like I realized that because my wife, she was with me when I hadn't even, graduated college. I wasn't a multi-unit manager. I didn't own real estate. I didn't own any of those things. So she sees that same kid in college. That's who I am, right? So, and today she has the utmost respect for that same kid, knowing all of the silly, dumb things I did, right? So when you sit down and you talk to someone who knows, you at your worst and they're proud of you and they, have the confidence to listen to you and follow you and things like that, it'll make you feel like a superhero. And you'll walk out the front door knowing that you can accomplish anything. So she has that type of effect on me, and she makes me feel powerful.
That is so beautiful. I really hope that you let her listen to this or watch that.
Not a chance. She'll never let me live it down.
I will find her. I'll find her. Right. So, LeVar, what would you say to business owners who shy away from feeling powerful or using their power?
Yeah. I would say it would, to me, it would start with looking internal, right? Because sometimes that it's that inner strength that we need, like kind of looking in the mirror and saying, all I have to do is be a little bit better today than I was yesterday. Every day. Like that's why I even teach my son that. It's like, hey man, first, before you worry about what anybody else thinks about you, look at the man in the mirror and identify what you need to do to be proud of yourself. And it's just small steps every day. And you'll look up and you'll be the most powerful person around you.
That's so important. I call that I remember a moment when I literally looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, I don't know who you are.
Yeah,
And that's when I realized I needed to do something different with my life because, looking at myself and I was not feeling that pride. So even just that simple connecting with yourself, literally looking at yourself in the mirror, you see it.
yeah.
It's so nice.
So can I tell this goes back to college again.
Mhm.
One of my first class, so many of those first classes that freshman to sophomore year created such a foundation for me. So I was in a communication class and I learned so much in that communication class. But one of the things that the professor said, just kind of off the cuff a little bit, and he said, "Hey, if you really, really want to be great at communication, never lie to yourself. Never lie to yourself." He was like, "You can lie to a lot of people, but when you start lying to yourself, you are in trouble." And it was just in a normal kind of conversation going back and forth. So I took that component along with what I learned from that class about listening to understand, right? And it was like, okay, so I can't lie to myself. And here's the thing, a lot of how you have that voice in your head and you're talking to yourself. It's like every now and again, slow down long enough to listen to understand what you're saying. And it's like, and that's that piece about, when if you look in that mirror, don't lie to yourself,
Yeah.
right? And when you said that about, hey, I looked in the mirror and I didn't know the person that was in the mirror. I think we've all had that moment. And what you can't do is lie to yourself in that moment. Because if you tell yourself the truth, like, I don't know me and I don't like me, all you got to do is start that day and do something about it. Just take a small step.
Yeah, absolutely. And that just recognizing that it's already massive, isn't it? That you would
Yeah.
realize, oh, hang on a minute. I'm
Yeah.
not even sure I like what I'm doing anymore, or the person
Right.
I have become doing what I'm doing. Yeah. And which is so disempowering. Yeah. So, LeVar, is there any last thing that you'd like us to know?
Well, not about me, but what I would say is that for anybody listening, I think it is awesome to have a platform like this to come and just talk about, things that we don't talk about enough, right? About like power, or community development, or looking in the mirror realizing you don't like yourself and then what to do next. So, Lynn, I just want to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be on a platform like this and have a great conversation, kind of talk about, back in the day, the good old days with me and having the ability to have a voice. So thank you.
You're very welcome. I've really enjoyed talking to you, LeVar, and I love how you've taken what you do and taken it to the next level and how you're giving back to your community. And that's just it's such a heartwarming story. So,
Thank
thank
you.
you for what you do and that looking further. And I'm really curious what your son is going to be doing in 10 years' time. He sounds like he's off to a great start. Love it. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Awesome.
Hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, why not try out this episode or this one instead and find out more about how power can work for you and your business?